Hello, and welcome to the Badhumanist look at the Holy Paladin. In this video, I'll be going through all the passives and abilities the Holy Paladin has, taking a look at his base toolkit, follow that up with a look at the talents, looking at each over things like synergy, usefulness, fun. After that, I'll show you a little bit of healing here in the Proving Grounds with a couple of endless rounds of some enemies here, as well as then moving into stats, looking at how the stats going to affect the overall healing of this Holy Paladin, wrapping it all up with some overall thoughts and some hopes maybe for the future here of this spec. So let's start off with our passives. So first thing we have here is our Mastery Lightbringer. Same as before, healing increases the healing done by up to a certain percent based on proximity to your target. So the closer you are, the more of that increased healing done you get. It's very strong, of course, when you are close to targets, but you do notice that you almost need it to heal effectively. And I'll talk about that later, but I think that's part of an issue, if there is one, with the Holy Paladin, is that the Mastery, I think, really is almost required to be efficient at healing. And again, like I mentioned, I'll talk about that in more detail. Infusion of Light, your Holy Shock crits reduce the cast time of your next Holy Light by 1.5 seconds, or increase the healing of your next Flash of Light by 40%. Heart of the Crusader, you move 20% faster while mounted. This does not stack with other movement speed increasing effects. All paladins have that. We have Redemption, again, that's just your res. Light of the Martyr. So here you sacrifice a portion of your own health to instantly heal an ally for a pretty good amount, actually. You do take damage equal to half of the healing that is done. It does not cause your Beacon of Light to be healed, cannot be cast on yourself. So very useful kind of triage spot heal, very cheap, by the way, as well. And you're basically trading health again for the healing. It's great to kind of catch somebody really quickly, but again, it's not as efficient because, again, it doesn't go through your beacon. So you're not going to be gaining any of the beacon heals. And again, depending on what kind of beacon you use, whether regular beacon, beacon of the light, beacon of faith, beacon of virtue, you definitely could be losing out on some healing there. So again, it's very much the case of that instance. Someone's about to die, let me save them. Light of Dawn unleashes a wave of holy energy, healing up to 5 injured allies within a 15-yard frontal cone for a certain amount. So again, this is okay because you're going to basically be in melee ranged, so it's just going to be like a little frontal cone AoE heal. Lay on Hands is still here, again, basically going to heal a target for all of your health pool. Judgment, again, judges the target, dealing holy damage and causes the target to take 30% increased damage from your next Crusader Strike or Holy Shock. Speaking of Holy Shock, it triggers a burst of light on the target, dealing holy damage to an enemy or healing to an ally, and has an additional 30% critical effect chance. So if you'll see here, the healing is just the healing. So we don't have that kind of like the crit healing is increased or whatever. The healing is more when you crit. So it's not as essential that this crits as it was in the past. And basically, it's just you're going to want to use it. It's a very efficient heal every 7.3 seconds. So every 7.3 seconds, this is basically the heal you're going to go with. And it just so happens to be able to crit a lot. Holy Light is an efficient spell, healing a friendly target for 25, 68 again. You'll see that Holy Shock is even more than a Holy Light, costs less and is instant. This again is a basically 2.5 second cast. It's right now currently being reduced by haste. This is a talent. Hand of Reckoning is a taunt. Hammer of Justice is a stun for 6 seconds on a 1-minute cooldown. Flash of Light, again, is your kind of like quick heal. Again, it does heal for less. They've kind of really differentiated, which I do actually like here. This is a more expensive heal than something like Holy Light. So again, 880 mana versus 320 mana. It's a faster heal, of course, but it does heal for a little chunk less. Again, we're talking about 2,300 here instead of like almost 2,600 here. So again, a decent percentage difference between the two. They almost used to be exactly the same. But now you will get more healing out of a Holy Light than you would out of a Flash of Light. But again, that increased cast speed does, of course, make its HPS better. Divine Steed still here. Again, you can hop on your charger, run around. This is about the only movement speed you really have. Divine Shield, again. Now, I am talented to reduce the cooldown here. It normally would be a 5 minutes down to 3.5 because of a talent I'm taking. Again, it grants immunity to all damage for our target for 8 seconds. Very good. Super powerful. Basically bubble, obviously. Does grant forbearance, but that's fine. Divine Protection is reducing all damage you take for 8 per second. So again, good survival ability here. Crusader Strike, you strike the target for physical damage, has a max of 2 charges. Again, it's a reduced by haste recharge system. Consecration, again, also reduced by haste, right? Pop that down. Does holy damage over 12 seconds. Enemies who enter it limit with 1. Cleanse, this is again your dispel for poison, disease, and magic effects. Blessing of Sacrifice, so you bless a party that reduces their damage taken by 30%, but you suffer damage prevented. Now it will last for 12 seconds or until you transfer damage that would cause you to fall below 20% health. So again, as long as you can keep your health up, you can use this as basically a 30% DR. Quite strong, 2-minute cooldown. So again, another very good single target kind of save somebody ability, and you have a good number of them with things like Divine Shield, and you have this as well, of course. Bop, again, blesses the party or raid member, granting immunity to physical damage and harmful effects for 10 seconds. Again, 5-minute cooldown. Great thing you can put on somebody. Does cause forbearance, of course. Blessing of Freedom is, of course, a immunity to movement and speed and fair. This is a talent. This is a talent. We'll get to that in a second. Normally you would have, and I'll actually change it up for right now. Normally you would have Beacon of Light. So again, wrap a single ally in holy energy, causing your heals on other party or raid members to also heal the ally for 40% of the amount healed. Target this ally directly with Flashlight or Holy Light, refunds 25% mana. Very important for that mana efficiency when you are healing your beacon target. Of course, you're not getting the extra healing potential, but again, if you have to heal more than likely the tank, you'll be able to do that. Avenging Wrath, 2-minute cooldown. Call upon the light to become an avatar of retribution. Increases your damage, healing, and critical strike chance by 30% for 25 seconds. So again, your healing goes up by 30% and your crit strike chance goes up by 30%. So again, you're basically going to be, for the most part, close to guaranteed crits on your Holy Shock, because you're basically getting a 60% increased chance to critical strike above your base. So again, that's pretty strong. Aura Mastery, so again, 3-minute cooldown. So depending on what aura you take, and there are 3 auras we'll talk about. I'm currently rocking, again, Devo Aura, but again, depending on whatever aura you're taking, again, it empowers that. We'll talk about those when we talk about the talents. And then Absolution is your mass res. So let's shift over now to the talents. 15 row, Crusader's Might, so Crusader Strike reduces the cooldown of Holy Shock and Light of the Dawn by 1.5 seconds. So again, it's an ability, if you're already going to be in melee, you can do a little bit of damage here or there, get your Holy Shock back up, get your Light of Dawn back up, again, kind of help your healing out in that regard. Bestow Faith, again, if you're tank healing, I think this is probably the best things you can take. Again, it basically does the healing you would see from a Holy Shock, but again, even cheaper on the mana, but it just happens after 5 seconds. There's a 12-second cooldown on it. But again, very effective. Again, it does get channeled through your beacon or beacons. So again, this can actually be super strong for a number of uses. Again, even with things like Beacon of Virtue, if you end up taking it, definitely with Beacon of Faith, of course, as well. Light's Hammer, so you hurl a light-infused hammer to the ground, dealing holy damage to nearby enemies and healing 6 nearby allies for a little bit every 2 seconds for 14 seconds on a 1-minute cooldown. This is super expensive, and doesn't, like, a AoE hot is not what the Holy Paladin needs. I'll leave it at that. It might be useful in other healers' toolkits, but that's not an area that this healer would need extra help with. The extra kind of AoE hot, especially again, it's not true AoE, it's just nearby allies, so basically your melee. It'll get healing done, but again, I just think that for what you're going to be doing, either of the other two is going to be better. I'd rather have more Holy Shocks or Bestow Faith than I would have this on a minute cooldown. 30 row, Cavalier, you can get 2 charges, again, of your steed. Unbreakable Spirit, which is what I'm talented into right now. So that reduces the cooldown of Divine Shield, Divine Protection, and Lay of Hands by 30%. Last one here is Rule of Law, so increases the range of your heals and the reach of your mastery by 50% for 10 seconds. So that's actually going to be quite nice. This could be a talent that a lot of people end up taking, especially, again, to be able to kind of get a bigger area for things like Aura Mastery, or, again, for their mastery in general. Again, also can be very helpful, again, if you need to be healing targets that are far away from you. So again, there's some obviously like spread fights where things like dragons, things like that, where you're fighting things on opposite ends of a platform. This might allow you to kind of heal both groups for a period of time. Again, it lasts for 10 seconds. There's 2 charges, 30-second recharge. So again, for those moments you're like, oh crap, I need to heal some dude on the other side, pop this, heal them. You should be good. If that's not needed though, Unbreakable Spirit or Cavalier will always be there. 45 rows, the same for every other paladin. Again, you have Blinding Light, which is an AoE disorient. You have Repentance, which is your incap ability. And you have your Fist of Justice, which again is reducing the remaining cooldown of Hammer of Justice by 10 seconds and Heavy Judgment. 60 row. The Aura of Mercy, we'll start there. It restores health to 3 injured allies within 10 yards every 2 seconds. And then while Aura Mastery is active, it heals all allies in the aura, and healing is increased by 100%. So you basically get like a very weak like trickle heal. I really think that either this needs to scale better, like maybe it will scale better when we get to 120. I don't know, but I think that needs to be buffed. Because even if that was healing 500 health every 2 seconds, it's only 3 targets, it wouldn't be too bad. Maybe a little bit less, maybe 400, something like that. It's just, I just don't know if you would ever want to take this. It does turn your Aura Mastery into kind of like a weak Tranquility or something, but again, don't think that's going to be what you're going to be taking. Aura Sacrifice. This is a little bit different now. So while you're above 75% health, 10% of all damage taken by allies within 10 yards is redirected to you and reduced by half. So again, basically anybody within 10 allies of where you are, as long as you're above 75% health, you will basically take 10% of all the damage from them, and then you take half of what that is. So you'll be taking 5% of the damage going out. This is quite nice, especially when we compare to Devotion Aura. In a case where you have a lot of targets around you, as long as you can keep yourself alive, which can happen by simply taking Beacon of Faith and beaconing yourself, this can be quite useful. Now with Aura Mastery, 30% of the damage is redirected to you and reduced by 10%, and it's going to be on everybody. So 30% of all the damage going out to everybody is redirected to you, and then reduced 7%. Now here's the thing, you can actually die. So if you're not topped off, and let's say a big AoE goes out, and you absorb 30% of all the damage and then reduce, it's possible, again, if you're not at full health, that you might die. So there's a risk involved here with Aura Sacrifice, but it could basically be a 30% DR on the entire raid for a big AoE, which is quite strong. Now, the safer option, but a little bit weaker, would be Devotion Aura. So normally, the damage dealt to allies within 10 yards is reduced by 10%, diminishing as more allies enter the aura. So again, with everybody, like within a 5-man group, everyone's going to get about 3% damage reduction. If it's just you, the tanking somebody else, you might get 6%. So again, less than the Aura Sacrifice, because that's, again, a flat 10% damage reduction, but again, to you, and then you take the damage of it. Now, with Aura Mastery here, basically everybody gets 20% DR. So if you don't want to worry about dying, for example, Devotion Aura is weaker than Aura Sacrifice, but again, there's just flat damage reduction. You don't take any of that damage. Now, you can also gimmick Aura Sacrifice. You could, for example, I don't know, maybe Divine Shield, right? Or depending on the kind of damage or whatever, you could also, again, kind of Divine Shield would be the best option. But again, if it was physical damage you're worrying about, Blessing of Protection on yourself could also work as well. So yeah, there are ways to kind of, gimmick this with Aura Sacrifice, where you would basically Divine Shield yourself and then that. And again, the cooldowns are almost lining up. Again, you have 3.5 if you take Unbreakable Spirit, and you would have 3 minutes on your Aura Mastery. So you'd basically almost be able to sync up your Divine Shield and your Aura Mastery for that. So that's a way of doing it. You Divine Shield yourself, then Aura Mastery, and you wouldn't have to worry about dying. You could absorb 30% DR. Very strong. 75 row, Judgment of Light. Judgment now causes the next 25 successful attacks against the target to heal the attacker for 92. This can heal everybody, so anybody who's attacking the target is going to get a little bit of healing here. This can actually add up. Again, I don't like this talent or something like this on the prot, but for the healer, I think is useful because, again, your job's kind of heal people, and you can be doing a pretty good job at that with this talent. It's just nice and passive. We have Holy Prism. This is a weird one. So 20-second cooldown. Decent mana cost, not too high, not too low, right? Pretty average there. But it's a beam, and if you aim at an enemy, it will deal holy damage and then radiate healing to 5 allies within 15 yards. If it's aimed at a friendly target, it will heal that target for an okay amount and then radiate holy damage to enemies. So it kind of does both the whole time. The last one we have is Holy Avenger. So this is a 1.5 minute cooldown. Increases your haste and your Holy Shock healing by 30% for 20 seconds. And this is nice. So this basically allows you to, in my opinion, really use Holy Light as effectively. It kind of reduces that cast down, makes it so you can have a nice efficient heal that does a good amount of healing. And then also, of course, will buff your Holy Shock. Now, Holy Shock can also proc, increase cast time on Holy Light as well. So again, those two things I think work nice together. And I'll get into how these things turn into basically like what your AoE cooldowns are. And that's, I think, the one area where Holy Paladin might have a little bit of a weakness. 90, Sanctified Wrath. So your Avenging Wrath lasts longer and also reduces Holy Shock's cooldown by 50%. So again, instead of whatever it was to begin with, maybe like 10 seconds, something like that, before haste, maybe it's 9 seconds before haste, it will get cut in half. Still then reduced by haste, though. Avenging Crusader. Now, this is an interesting one. It replaces Avenging Wrath, right? So Avenging Wrath gets replaced. Now, it will cost you mana, which is really weird. It's a decent chunk of mana as well. I don't know if that's intentional. It's a 2-minute cooldown. So again, instead of the 3, it's still 2 minutes as Avenging Wrath. So same thing there. But now it increases your Crusader Strike, Judgment, and auto attack damage. And Crusader Strike and Judgment cool down faster and heal up to 3 injured allies for 250% of the damage they deal. Lasts for 20 seconds. So I took this talent with doing some testing. It's strong, right? So again, for 5-man content, this is very strong. You basically can use this, you're doing damage, and you're topping people off left and right. And again, the healing is a smart heal. So it would be any injured allies, and again, 3 of them, for 200% of the damage they deal. And remember, you're already getting that increased damage done to the things here. So if I pull back up, I have help hurt macros, so I don't have them on my bar. But you take Crusader Strike, for example, normally 1,000 physical damage. With this here, you're increasing that by about 30%, so now we're talking about 1,300. And then you're multiplying that by 250%, right? Again, remember, 100% would be doubling. So this is basically triple and a half almost. So yeah, you can get some pretty decent healing on these targets with this up. Again, its mana cost is up there, but 2-minute cooldown, and it does a lot of healing. So very interesting like damage healing cooldown there for sure. It's just a question of, do you want to sacrifice Avenging Wrath, which has the ability to heal, just empower your healing in general, for this is the question. Because if you don't have any targets around, you can't really use it. Awakening, Light of Dawn has a 50% chance to grant you Avenging Wrath for 10 seconds. This is a lot like some of those legendaries that popped up at the end of Legion, where use this ability and it has a chance to grant you whatever your cooldown was. I'll be on the record to say I hated those. I think they were dumb. As a healer, I don't want random effects. I don't want Avenging Wrath sometimes. Right? I want Avenging Wrath when I want Avenging Wrath. And we just find in general as healers, I think, that random procs like this, while they can be useful and you can get lucky, and it feels great when Light of Dawn, you get Avenging Wrath for a bit, you feel strong for a little bit. It's just how many times you're going to be wasting it, how many times you're actually be able to use it. And again, having it off of Light of Dawn is a bit odd as well. Moving on to the 100 row. Divine Purpose. Casting Light of Dawn or Holy Shock has a chance to not trigger that spell's cooldown and make the next cast free. This is actually quite nice. If you're not going to take Faith in Virtue, again, this is a good other option. Now, why you wouldn't take one of the other two, I'm not sure. But if there's a situation where you don't want to take Virtue and maybe you're in a 5-man content type stuff where Beacon of Faith's not going to help as much, yeah, this is not a bad option there. Again, it's useful for both Holy Shock and Light of Dawn, so it has synergy for both kind of AoE and single target healing. The Holy Shock part's really nice because you could basically Holy Shock, get yourself the empowered, Flash of Light, Holy Light, use one of those spells, and then use it again and get lucky again with a second proc. So you can kind of see how that's helpful. And again, it can proc off itself. So the free one can technically proc another free one. I have seen that actually happen in my testing. Beacon of Faith, this is probably what a lot of people are going to, of course, go with here. So Beacon of Faith, mark a second target as a beacon, mimicking the effects of Beacon of Light. Your heals will now heal both of your beacons, but at 30% reduced effectiveness instead of 40%. So again, if you can use the first one, and then the second you put the second one on is when you then incur the reduction there. Beacon of Virtue, again, this again also costs a little bit more mana to use. Beacon of Faith, technically all of it, but they're so minimal. So Beacon of Virtue here, 15-second cooldown. You apply a Beacon of Light to your target and 3 injured allies within 30 yards for 8 seconds. All affected allies will be healed for the 40% amount, normal. And again, your Flash of Light and Holy Light on those targets will also refund the mana cost. So basically, it puts your beacon across. The only difference here is you're not going to have 100% uptime because it does replace Beacon of Light. So for cases where you're not as concerned about just pure tank healing and you want that extra kind of like burst AoE healing, this can be helpful. Again, 5-man content is a good example of that. Again, we'll have to wait and see what the tank damage is like. I'm aware it's pretty high currently, so you probably will end up taking Faith or Purpose over this, even in 5-man at the beginning. But eventually, when healing gets stronger and tanks get stronger, and the tanks can maybe self-sustain a little bit, and you don't need 100% uptime on a beacon on your main tank, this could be very useful. Because again, not only does it help your mana efficiency on multiple targets, again, you can have it onto 4 targets basically. The target you choose plus 3 others. And again, the applied to 3 other ones is a smart apply. So again, it will go into the things that are most injured the most. Injured first. Yeah, things that injure the most the first. So yeah, I think that Beacon will maybe eventually get some playtime in some scenarios down the line. But again, it's going to be a situation where you're not going to need a Beacon on your main tank target at all times. So that now leads me into my kind of thoughts in general. I'm going to kind of show you here in an endless run how the Holy Paladin here plays. So let's put you there and give me this. Alright, so I got my beacons out. So anytime you get that proc, again, it's one of those things where, in general, having the increased speed on Holy Light seems to be a bit better than that. But again, if you need the extra healing of the Flash of Light, you can use it, of course, as well. Get some damage in there. And I actually will switch up to Sanctify if I can. Yeah, wait till I'm in kind of combat. That's fine. So I'll end this thing and switch over to Sanctify, because I do think Sanctify would be slightly better than Devotion Aura with this setup. But in general, when I've been testing out this, again, just in these kind of 5-man type content stuff, what I tend to find is where the weakness comes from is when there's a lot of AoE damage and your ability to kind of heal a lot of people up. And what ends up having to happen is you basically end up using your kind of like your cooldowns, which aren't necessarily AoE cooldowns, but they just end up empowering your healing, and that basically becomes how you end up, in a sense, healing here. So you kind of have to use those, Holy Avenger, Avenging Wrath cooldowns, really for just kind of like increased AoE healing. Now you'll see in those cases, it's not the most mana efficient. I'll also show off Avenging Crusader as well, because I think it's a very cool talent. Go one more round, then I'll switch it up. So again, you can see that I have some help hurt macros going on to help with the bar organization here. These little dudes can be quite nasty. But in general, again, it's really a case where the Holy Paladin has the ability to do a lot of damage while healing, again, even now giving them a cooldown to basically increase that. So again, that is always something that's very valuable in things like Mythic Plus, where again the ability for the healer to do damage and help get through things, as well as having good utility with Hammer of Justice, and again the ability to take things like Blinding Light and such, could basically get an AoE interrupt, is always very, very well received. All right, let's actually end this, switch it up, and then start up again. Yeah, yield. All right, so let's switch this up. Again, take Sacrifice. And then I will show you Avenging Crusader here as well. Let's even switch it up to Beacon of Virtue as well.
There is
All right.
no end in sight to these illusions, but we shall hold out as long as we can.
But again, you really have to keep that mastery up. So you can see there, got it onto 3 targets, probably on the stupid Hunter's Pet. So I wish there wasn't a Hunter here, because I have found the Hunter's Pet takes one of the beacons here, so not the most ideal situation, of course. But I'll wait a second round here to kind of show you the Avenging Crusader cooldown. But in general, again, I found that the Holy Paladin does a pretty decent job in these kind of small group environments. I do think when it comes to raid that their ability to, again, single target, kind of triage, tank heal is obviously going to still be their strength. They really do suffer when it comes to healing a large number of targets at once. And without the kind of the old sacrifice, and with Aura Mercy being as weak as it is, they don't really have a good AoE heal in the traditional sense of it. All the abilities they can get to kind of AoE heal are in a small area. They don't really have your kind of traditional bigger ranged AoE kind of healing abilities like we see with a lot of the other healers. All right, so let's going to go ahead and use this. So you can see when I do damage, I do healing. So that's a good example. Yeah, there we go. I can heal everybody. There we go. So again, interesting kind of, again, cooldown there that really does empower some of the healing there. You can even see Avenging Crusader is the healing here. You can have like a 4,000. So again, you can heal multiple targets again for this amount as well, which is quite nice. And again, if you crit the heal. So that's always quite nice as well. Now, you can't double dip on the crit with that. So again, basically whatever the damage does is then goes through. So again, those heals can't necessarily crit per se. You just can crit on the damage originally, and then that extra damage gets channeled through to the 250% healing done. All right, so take a look at stats now. Crit, of course, is going to be very valuable. Again, single targets, healing, and again, the ability to get more crit out of Holy Shock. It's not going to be, I think, as essential as it was in Legion because of the way that Holy Shock just has its base healing amount already there. Haste, again, I think is going to have some value, but again, traditionally speaking, Paladins have not liked haste. Again, I probably have way too much haste, obviously, here in my gear setup for right now. Versus, I think, is actually going to be really good. I've always thought Versus is a very good healing thing. Anytime you can increase that base level of healing up, that thing gets multiplied through things like Mastery, through crit. That's always very helpful. You know, a percent of a bigger number becomes bigger, so that's useful. Mastery, again, here's where, again, I really do worry, because you can tell if I'm trying to go and heal like a hunter out behind, my heals are very weak on that target, because, again, I'm getting nothing from my Mastery. And so it really is one of those things where the ability to, again, expand Mastery with something like Rule of Law, or, again, to position yourself in a way where you're in range and getting the most targets in your Mastery is going to be very important. It's to the point to where you might almost want some kind of like interesting weak order that maybe can kind of like show you who's all in your Mastery, so you can kind of maximize where your positioning is on certain fights, because Mastery is so important and very strong. But again, Mastery only helps you heal targets in that range. Or sorry, the increasing healing is only done to people in the range that then again decreases as proximity grows. So yeah, it's one of those things where crit will probably still be very powerful. I do think haste is going to have more value than it has in the past, because again, Uh, mana efficiency is important, and haste can actually kind of help with the ability to use Holy Light to get that HPS up. Still won't be super strong, I don't think, but again, I think haste won't be just completely wasteful as it was in the past. I think verse might even be second, or if not close to mastery, depending on the kind of fights. If there's fights where you can really maximize that mastery, yeah, crit mastery is going to be the way to go. If not, crit verse again, I think it can be very useful because verse is really the only other thing, again, other than haste, that's going to help you increase that healing on targets outside of your mastery. But again, I just don't see much of that. I think that Holy Paladin's really strong niche is in healing targets in melee, right? Healing targets in that mastery range. They're very efficient. Again, with either Beacon of Virtue or Beacon of Faith, you have the ability again to get really efficient healing on 1 to 2 targets. Again, Beacon of Faith having both tanks beaconed and then getting the mana back basically from that again is very, very, very strong. So again, I definitely think that Paladin's going to keep doing what it has been doing, but I do worry that their mana efficiency outside of healing the beacon targets, outside of using efficient heals, if they have to heal more AoE, they lose mana very quickly because they don't have any tools to effectively do that, right? Sure, you can bestow faith on a target, but again, you might get sniped. So you're going to want a flasher, Holy Light, or Holy Shock, and the efficiency of those spells to heal multiple targets just isn't there. So again, maybe Beacon of Virtue becomes a little bit stronger. You can actually Virtue 4 or 5 targets out there and heal all of them. Again, something like Avenger Crusader is nice because again, it's a smart heal and the range of it's decently large. So again, we'll have to obviously kind of wait and see. But again, even things like Holy Prism and Light of Hammer are not true kind of all over healing as we might see from other classes. So that might limit their ability, but I still think they bring good utility. I still think you're going to see them in most raids. But again, they're just not, I think, the powerhouses as they were in Legion, which is okay. They were really, really strong in Legion. I think they've been knocked a little bit, but they're still very effective at what they have always done well at, which is tank healing and single target healing. Okay, so if you like this video, go ahead and give me a like. If you dislike the video, go ahead and get a dislike. Again, what are your comments? What do you think about the Holy Paladin? Let me know down in the comments below. If you like this video, again, feel free to subscribe to the channel. And thank you very much for watching. Hope to see you in my future videos.